Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to this Clubhouse event, Your Energy, Your Health. Be responsible with empowering solutions. I would like to start by raising the vibration in the space we're in now by calling for the highest possible vibration, calling for the truth to come forward into our discussion today so that we may see the truth in all that we see, so that we may hear the truth in all that we hear, so that we may speak the truth in all that we say. Shall we be in that frequency of truth, and shall we have nothing but the truth? Shall we call for the power of divine feminine to bring balance back into our world, showing us the way through honor, respect, and gratitude? Shall we call for the power of divine feminine to bring balance back into our world, showing us the way through honor, respect, and gratitude? Shall we call for the power of divine feminine to bring balance back into our world, showing us the way through honor, respect, and gratitude? Shall we call for the highest possible vibration? Shall we call for the highest possible vibration? Shall we call for the highest possible vibration? I now ask for everyone to take a sip of water and ask for the water to hydrate our brain and body. Water is the medium that holds memory and will assist in the flow of the information that is received today on Clubhouse. Now I ask that everyone take a deep breath in, bringing in peace, and release and exhale, letting everything else out. Take another deep breath in, bringing joy and gratitude. And exhale out, releasing all that does not serve you. And Lakesh and Veritas, everyone, I call for the oneness and truth of the information shared by each and every one of us on this call, calling for the frequency of truth and all that is truth with honor, respect, and gratitude. And Lakesh, the Mayan greeting of oneness signifying unity, where everything and everyone is interconnected. The idea of community, where we can share with one another ideas, goals, aspirations, so that we all, as one, can benefit and thrive. Veritas is the Latin word for truth, so that we see the truth in all things. So therefore, Enlication Veritas is that declaration which we are declaring our spaces and places as that we're in now, that we may bring in and bring forth a truthful and elevated enlightened discussion this evening, clearing away those ill thoughts that we tend to pick up and carry with us from our everyday life experiences. And Lakesh Veritas, a powerful affirmation bringing into the space a vibration and frequency that assists in bringing in clarity and a greater understanding of truth to all who are present and to all who are listening. And remember, our words hold power. So it is important that we use our words carefully, using words of upliftment, encouragement, and enlightenment. And by doing so as a collective, we help to transform our spaces and places into higher frequencies that will result in better experiences in our lives and will also help to raise the vibrations of those individuals who we touch. So, Enlication Veritas, everyone, with honor, respect, and gratitude. And before we begin this discussion, I would like for everyone to hold their water again in their hands. And with intention in mind, I ask that you send the frequency of Enlikesh to your water. Then take a sip of the water. Remember, we are 70% water, and water holds information and memory, thereby assisting in incorporating that elevated frequency of Enlikesh into our cells, signaling into our bodies, and using this technique allows for the ease and flow of information we'll be sharing with one another this evening. All right, let's get to it. So for the past 2 weeks, we've been speaking on ways to reduce the energy of fear and anxiety and doubt that our world is inundated with, and looking at its relationships to our emotions and how we're feeling, how it affects our emotions and our feelings. So we talked about anxiety and fear and how it relates to our chakras, our solar plexus in particular, that queasy feeling that we get in the pit of our stomach. And these are signs indicating that this energy center of our bodies needs to be strengthened, which can at times be immobilizing. So the solar plexus is all about our willpower And when we strengthen it and balance it, we optimize it, we're able to make better decisions and have clarity as we move towards our goals, motivations, purpose, and strength. But if we have too little willpower, we tend to be easily distracted by things outside of us and easily led off of our path. A lack of willpower, we have the tendency to not believe in our own abilities to transform. And people who have too much willpower are likely to be fixated on their own goals to the detriment of other people. So it's important to have balance. So the solar plexus is also related to digestion. So when we're in good balance, we have a good digestion and the normal flow of those digestive juices. And this is where those feelings of queasiness comes in. And I found this information to be helpful in the solution to working with these feelings and sensations that can sometimes be paralyzing. So the media presents so much information all based on fear. So I'm here to share solutions that I personally have worked with and continue to work with that have countered these ill emotions that can sometimes be paralyzing. So today I want to talk about the next chakra, which would be the throat chakra, the chakra that deals with honesty. So this is the chakra center of communication. It's about honesty, speaking our truth in constructive ways with those around us, as well as what's being truth to ourselves. So when we're honest, when our honesty is out of balance, we tend not to be true to ourselves. And perhaps you know what you want, but you may deny yourself of. On the other side, honesty and balance is not being true to others. And you will tend to hide your personal truth by trying to please other people or second guess other people, what they think. But this always leads to someone being hurt, either you or the person that you're interacting with. So does anyone have anything to share about the throat chakra? So when I think on truth, I start thinking, back, African American slavery, for instance, in the United States, and I speak, for the Africans in the African diaspora, a group of people who were prevented to speak the truth during slavery and post-slavery times for fear of their lives. This process resulted in the suppression of their throat chakra, which has affected many Black communities today, and which has led to many African Americans being passive and complacent. So during this era of civil rights, though, when Blacks started to stand up and speak the truth, that's when changes occur. And granted, there's still more to be done, but it was a start. But let's not even stop there. How about the Jews and others who have been enslaved during during the Holocaust, the American Indians and the Indians and the Indians and in India and their caste system? This is a suppression of the throat chakra not being able to speak the truth and has led to suffering for the most part. Does anybody have any comments to share? So speaking on the truth is there's so much misinformation or disinformation that is presented to us in the media and today that generates fear. And we forget how powerful we are to overcome all these perceived obstacles. This means that in truth, we are capable of overcoming all obstacles that are presented to us. So working on our throat chakra, strengthening it, will help us to speak the truth and is a tool that has helped move many people out of unwanted experiences and circumstances. Today we have the women in Iran speaking their truth for freedom. Anyone have anything to add with that? It's
And look at Spirit has unexpected gratitude.
And Lakeisha Veritas, honor, respect, and gratitude.
Yes, I agree with you. My experience, Dr. Delilah, is that many have, I can just speak for myself. Um, I had a very suppressed throat chakra. My experiences where I was having even physical, as a young person, I didn't speak, I held on to a lot of information for fear of saying the wrong thing, or, as a youth, or sometimes for me anyway, I didn't, if I didn't know everything, felt like I needed to know everything. And if I didn't have the information, I didn't speak up. And so I would could actually feel it in my throat. I would feel like a tightness in my throat. Um, it was like a constant kind of tightness that I became aware of it as I got older. And I did, as I started to speak more, then that tightness loosened and the words became more fluent for me. I became less afraid. The more I spoke, the more it loosened up, and the better I felt physically, which led to even better health in other ways, because that was part of my truth, was being suppressed, not speaking, and feeling some kind of way about not having all the answers. So that's just my experience with the throat, one of them anyway.
Right,
So,
right.
and
Mm.
Lakesh Verta.
And Lakeisha Veritas, honor, respect, and gratitude. A lot of our children, I've seen kids that tend to, their throat chakra is suppressed. They're not able to speak freely because they're taught at a younger age you got to obey these rules, these sets of rules, and as a result, it kind of stifles their creativity. Um, and and I think it's a disservice to them. It just instilled fear in them.
In location
In
fair.
location fairs.
And like Kishan Vera,
Um, um, my apologies. See, I speak too fast. That's part of my throat
oh, that's
chakra.
Stacy
So,
now. Oh yeah.
That's both of us, Stacy. That's why we were both on at the same time. You go.
oh, oh, absolutely, Tiffany, you are such my reflection and my just such a beautiful oneness all the time, all the time. It's so interesting about the throat chakra. I realized through exploring past lives and exploring what's happening in even this lifetime, a lot of issues has always been within my throat area.
Mm,
It's manifested in multiple ways, from when I used to take birth control, for hormonal balances, the reaction that occurred in my throat area, to I had a speech impediment as a young child. And it was so interesting. I found the paperwork for that process. And apparently I had scarlet fever as a 1 year old. And it was just like,
oh, wow. Mm,
didn't even know scarlet fever was still around to that extent. But just seeing how it was manifesting in so many different ways of my life. But
mhm,
I had to step into gratitude because I saw it as me speaking to myself to remember to step into my truth. And
mhm,
it's something that I'm still working to. And it's such a reminder, because today, like, I was looking in the mirror, and it was like I could really ridicule myself for the appearance that I'm seeing within my throat, but it was just like, let me be grateful that I was mindful enough to give myself this reminder to be truthful, to be in truth, to live in truth. And it's been interesting as I've been stepping into it more and more. A lot of the issues have been subsiding, and they
mhm,
continue to subside slowly but surely. So again, that being able to hear the truth is something that I think is overlooked, because we think of the throat area, we think of voice, but to
mhm,
hear, I had so many ear aches as a child as well. So it's just all these connections and all these reminders of to be vigilant to the truth in so many different ways. So that is what I am focused on, in terms of my throat chakra. But it is so imperative to be able to speak my truth, because for years I have been so self-conscious of speaking because
Mhm.
what if I get tongue-tied? What if I don't know how to pronounce this word the right way? And I've been silencing myself, and me silencing myself has prevented me from sharing my truth with others that might need to hear it themselves or to be encouraged to speak their truth. So,
And I,
so
yep, yes, I agree. And that complacency, we've actually been trained to be complacent. And as a
Mhm.
result, it's taking us a long time to shift into basically freedom, with regards to, when I talk about the civil rights and the African American plight, we still have issues going on, but it's not just us, it's also women.
Oh, absolutely. And it's even more prevalent as a woman, as a mother, having been a spouse. Like it's so many different components to it that just builds upon. And I can see moments when it was like I should have spoke up. I was being a
Yep.
coward in that moment. I did
Yeah.
a disservice to myself and to the person that I was supposed to speak up for. And
Yeah.
that takes us into that shame. And it's just that cycle that continues. So I am working
Yes.
to
And
step out of that fear because,
go
as
ahead.
we spoke on the other chakras, the fear is not going to serve anybody. It's not going to
No.
serve us. It's not going to serve the truth. So, stepping out of that and being able to tell the truth, even if it's scary, even if it's something that's fear inducing, but it's all we know it's a trick. We know it's all a trick.
And
So,
fear is the biggest trick in humanity. Fear is the
ab-
biggest trick.
absolutely. And Lakeshi Veritas, second gratitude.
Thank you, Stacy, for sharing with us, because it's so true. And if we don't start speaking the truth, how are our children going to know, and how are they going to become free? It's kind of, it's a mental bondage, a mental and emotional bondage that we're tying ourselves and keeping ourselves. And if we just spoke the truth, holding a lie, it's just such a weak foundation, as opposed to standing in truth. It's so strong and empowering. And I don't know if people have get that sense, but I mean, that's how I feel. you know Anybody else have any comments as well?
In the Kitchen Veritas with honor, respect, and gratitude. This is Tiffany.
Thank you.
I, in the Kitchen Veritas, I was, thank you, everything that you said, Stacey. It made me think of a lot of experiences I had growing up. I, prior to that, was had a thought about what Dr. Delilah, you were saying about children, um, and a lot of children are repressed and are told to not say something. And I feel like a lot of times in the traditional school setting, um, kids are many times being said, hold on a moment, that now's not the time to speak. You have to raise your hand, ask permission to speak. And my daughter's just having a very different experience. And, she just speaks her truth all day long to anyone who wants to hear it or doesn't want to hear it. And, her, interestingly enough, her absolute favorite color is blue. And she wears blue all the time. And she'll tell the truth to anyone walking by about anything, like even when she's with her friends, like, don't step on that ant. You need to step over the ant. Why would you even consider doing that? Or, her dad wanted to get a honey baked ham, and she was like, Dad, is the honey cooked on the ham? Because we can't eat cooked honey. So you're not going to eat that, right? I mean, she's like, or she'll say, oh, syrup, it's made from corn syrup. That is, I don't think that anyone should have corn syrup. It's killing the bees. You know that's killing the bees, right? So you're not going to eat something that has corn syrup. I mean, it's just, she just it embodies the truth and speaks it, and said from the mouth of babes type thing. But it's just what she's saying is really true,
Yes,
and
it
she's
is.
making other people see that truth. And I remember when I was growing up, I never really had a hard time standing up for other people. Like, I was a person who, if someone was being made fun of, I was putting it down immediately. Like, I was always in any situation standing up for what was right outside of myself. But I sometimes, throughout life, had a hard time being that bold and brave when it was something inside of myself. When a wrong
Mhm.
was being done to me, um,
Mhm.
not necessary, you know. And so that's interesting because I never really thought about that until Stacy was saying that, because I always felt like I spoke my truth. You know, I was the one standing up talking all of the time, clearly, and the first one to raise my hand to say what, you know, needed to be said, or to ask the question that needed to be asked. But I don't know, if a friend was doing something wrong to me, or a boyfriend or something, putting my foot down and really standing up for that truth always seemed harder, and to have the
Yeah.
same amount of respect for myself that I had for other people.
Right.
So that was
Right.
something, you know, that I've worked through throughout life.
Yeah. And how to help overcome that is working through that throat chakra,
Right.
because it's an internal turmoil that you have. And I'll tell you, I've just started really working and delving into doing working with each of the and every chakras, and it's helped to release, that stress that I would have in, basically correlating the stresses that I would emotional stresses that I would feel or I see within myself. And I'm just encouraging people to lean into that, lean into working with the chakras and freeing that, and freeing those imbalances, and strengthening your chakras. So thank you,
That's
Tiffany,
very
for that.
helpful. And I remember, I fairly recently, within the last year, um, I remember I saw clearly a situation going on with friends that had to do with a lot of darkness, and they were fairly new friends, and
Hmm.
I I felt 15 again, like, I don't know how they're going to feel about me if I say all of this, but I need to say it, or I can't hang out with them. I just need them to know the truth. And so I just
Right,
took
right.
them for a walk on the beach one day and sat them down and was like, okay, here it is. But I could feel, you know, when you get the knot in your throat and like you want to
Yeah.
cry, and you know, like all of the, like, it's so fascinating how physical it really is. And then, like, I let the truth out, and we were
And it
all
was a
stronger
relief.
because of it. It
It
was
was,
yeah, it
yeah,
was total. And now I can, like, be around them and enjoy their presence and have them in my life, and it's just
yeah.
everyone knows what I see is clear, and I'm not about to put
Right.
up with anything different. And it's just, it shifted everything in the experience and in our future trajectory as friends, but also in that moment, that physicalness was so, her physicality was so fascinating to remember. I
Yeah.
hadn't had that experience in so long.
Yeah, I mean that's I'm glad you brought that up, because I've experienced that as well. I don't know what they're gonna think. And you make all these stories up in your head, and you don't want to speak it, so you basically suppress your truth for the sake of thinking that what are they gonna think about me, or I don't want to offend anyone, and so forth. But once you
Right, and
release
even in the
it, it's
moment, I
so
kept saying,
free.
like, I don't know what you're gonna think. I don't know what you're gonna, like. Why was I even saying all of that? At the end, they were like,
Right.
"Thank you
Right.
for being
Exactly.
truthful." Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. Does anybody else have more to share?
Yeah. May I say one more thing, Dr.
Oh, yeah,
Delilah,
absolutely.
about, I was thinking about what Stacy and Tiffany was saying, and it made me, uh, it stimulated me to remember, like, and as Lord always says, I mean, we're in resonance, right? With
Mhm.
everything in the universe, we're all connected. And so when we are brave enough to speak the truth, we have a healing, and as well as everything around us, and it stimulates the truth being spoken out into the universe, everyone, whether they're in physical hearing, distance, or in another part of the world, that truth resonates everywhere around. And so we have to be brave, to speak the truth so that it will change for everyone. So it just made me think about that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing it. It's freedom. It truly is freedom when you're able to speak the truth. Stephanie, I see you're flashing.
Yes, ma'am. In the Cash and Veritas.
Look
Honor,
at your
respect, and
honor,
gratitude
respect, and gratitude.
to everyone. Um, I remember as a child, my mother would always tell us, you're gonna be seen and not heard.
Yep, yep,
And if we,
absolutely.
yeah, and if we went to the grocery store or somewhere, she would say, you better not ask for anything. Yeah. And so, we're sitting there quiet, and Or either we go over to, her friend's house, and she would tell us before, like she was cooking or something, and they ask you, do you want some of the food? You better say no. And like, and like, okay. But you're sitting there and you're smelling this good fried chicken cooking, and they got the macaroni and cheese going and all that stuff. And we're sitting there starving because we've been sitting there for like 3-4 hours, and
Yeah.
they ask, would you like some? And we've been told we better say no. It's going to be a serious
Mhm.
price to pay when we get home, but not realizing that
It's
those things
temptation.
really do affect you.
Yep.
And when I got older, I did the same thing to my children.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I see with my grandchildren, I tell my daughter, and I can't, force her to do anything, but, those things were ingrained in her for me as it was ingrained in my mother. Um, but, it's time for us to stop that, because
Right.
it's nothing wrong with you saying no thank you, or yes, may I have some, or you're sitting there being seen and not heard, you're not speaking, but all the while it's causing an issue. And I grew a goiter,
Mm.
and while you're speaking now, I'm thinking of that was like an overgrowth of all the things that I have held on in my throat chakra,
Mm-hmm.
that I've wanted to say throughout my lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up having a thyroidectomy. And more recently, we've been working on, the chakras, and I've just been speaking, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm firing off like a machine gun, like, hey, I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm speaking, but just letting go of those mental causations and that programming that we have been under for so long. We have to stop that. We just got to stop it.
Right, to
With
heal.
Implication Veritas.
Thank you, Stephanie. That's to heal. Because all those mental constructs and imbalances and blocks results, it's mental causation resulting in physical issues that we're manifesting now, today, when they're long standing. So, we have to be free. And I totally agree. That when I was a child, it was the same thing. Children are to be seen and not heard. And so I remember going to a show and tell, like this private school when I was in doing my residency, and I just remember some of the kids, they were very vocal, and asking questions because I was like I was, it was a show and tell type of thing, and I was like the doctor representation there and so forth, and there were certain kids that would raise their hand and ask questions, did not have fear asking them, and there were this little girl that looked like me that they would sit there quiet and not say a word. So I would try to encourage that child, because it just reminded me of me when I was a child sitting there and I would just be quiet. So it's kind of doing a disservice. Our children are watching us. They're watching us, and they're not, you'll tell them, oh, don't, I used to tell my kids, don't be afraid, you stand up and so forth, but then they're actually watching us and they don't necessarily do what we say. They basically mimic what our behavior. So, yeah.
Implication Veritas. I wanted to add something. It's been really remarkable as I've been listening to everybody speak. Everyone that has spoken, it's been it's been so interesting because I'm just like, when you all speak, you all have such beautiful insight, and it's just interesting to see how so many of us have been silenced, and even the point of that, we don't really encourage or affirm each other. And it kind of reminds me of the 8 C's, something that I am also working through. But it
Mm-hmm.
just shows how we do not affirm each other, and we don't see the blessing and the the oneness in that aspect of when we hear someone speaking something that resonates with them loudly, we don't reach out and say, you know what, that really helped me. That really
Yep.
helped me deep down. And
Yep.
it is just so remarkable because I believe that's part of the truth. Like that's us speaking our
Yeah.
truth, and that's a part that's not really encouraged within our world. And
Yeah.
it's a change that we need to embrace because, yeah, we can easily fall into that jealousy. We can easily fall into that comparing, competing, which I am so deep in after growing up competitions and,
Yep.
sports. But for us to just affirm and speak the truth to one another, in addition to speaking our own truth, it is so
Yep.
empowering.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that because I was going to bring that up later on is that this is a platform which we are supporting one another. We're like-minded individuals here, and we're able to share our ideals and goals and support one another. And you're absolutely right. Instead of those
Oh,
8 feet. Go ahead, Tiffany.
I apologize, Malakesh and Veritas. On that note, um, right before Clubhouse today, literally it came to my mind, don't forget to thank Stephanie for what she said on Clubhouse 2 weeks ago because it
Mhm.
has helped me shift. And when we were talking about overcoming fear and doubt and physically feeling it in our bodies, um, and then calling for the highest possible vibration until you feel the physicality of that dissipate. And I
Yeah.
thought I had been doing that before, but I didn't really do it in the way that was working for me as much until Stephanie said that. And it
Yeah.
just, it shifted. And I have been different because of it. And it has worked incredibly well for me because of it. So
Right.
thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah,
And
thank you, Stephanie. And she inspired me too, also because last week that was the focus on solar plexus.
oh,
Her
yes.
her statement was inspired me to talk about the solar plexus.
Honor,
And thank you,
respect, and
Thank you,
gratitude.
Stacy, for bringing it up.
You're very welcome. It has helped me so much. Yeah. Um, and it was almost like an automatic thing because you conjure up this stuff that hasn't
Yep.
even taken place. And you
Hmm.
got yourself all messed up and your stomach is feeling crazy and
I
you're
know.
like, what's going on? And
Yeah.
I just immediately went into higher vibration and calling for the higher vibration, and um things just started to move. They just started to leave. And I
Hmm.
just kept going. And so now when I can feel something coming up like that, I'm like, okay, Steph, get yourself together. And I
Right.
started
Right.
calling for the highest possible vibration, and it'll all subside and go away. It's like just a miracle. Like it's
Well,
just awesome.
you work through your that chakra.
Yes.
You work through the chakra because the chakra for for solar plexus is will, but there's also the sacral chakra that deals with creativity, confidence, and so forth, and that is what then affects like diarrhea and constipation. Because I remember my mother will say, when she's nervous, she's like, "Oh my God, I got diarrhea," you know, yeah, and that has to do with the sacral chakra, you know.
We call them skitter pains.
Oh, that's what that is? Okay. Yeah, but we were never told how to deal with it. We just dealt with it and that was it. We like, okay, and we just wait for it to go away. But we could actually do something energetically to clear it,
To
you know.
will it away, literally. I mean, that's what it feels
Exactly.
like is happening, like calling on our will and summoning it up and pushing out what we don't want and bringing in what we do want.
Mhm. Mhm. And I'll tell you the candles work too.
Oh,
So
yes.
I've been lighting every candle, whenever I decide to do work with a chakra. I got all of them lined up, and you only need like 20 minutes of it lit to get it to help it to assist and move you through that and clear that block and strengthen. that energy vortex. So,
I wanted to bring
I
I
wanted
something.
to add
Oh,
also,
go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to add also recently, I've been using the frequency waters, but what I've been doing is I've been talking to the frequency water and putting it in my heart chakra, bringing the bottle up to my heart chakra, and asking the frequency water to share its magic, protection, and healing with me and integrate into my energy field.
mhm, mhm,
And especially with the ancestors' frequency water. And you can literally feel the shift and the integration and the strength that comes through. And I ask, to help with fear, cutting cords, having the right connection with people, knowing and asking them to direct me what to say and not to say, and just everything, learning the lesson before the lesson. So that connection with those frequencies waters are very powerful,
yeah.
very, very powerful.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. It's Sarah, you had something to say? I saw you. You
Yes, in Lakesh and Veritas with honor, respect, and
and
gratitude.
Krishna Veritas, honor, respect, and gratitude.
So I was just thinking about something that someone said
Uh huh.
about will, and I don't know if I agree with that, but it could be individual.
What is
Um,
with what now? With what is that then? With
with like when you're working on a chakra or I think of it more of like releasing
mm-hmm.
the negative
Or,
emotion.
yeah, they're blocking the motion that's in that chakra.
Yeah, yeah. So I think of it more like releasing.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
I was just thinking about too that uh when the negative emotion is affecting the chakra, because I was really thinking of the throat chakra that everybody was discussing, and how the voice changes, how the frequency of the voice changes um, with the negative emotions,
Mm-hmm.
um, and with the positive emotions also. So yeah, I was thinking more of like releasing.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So I know that as long the truth is always there's strength in that when you release that in that with the throat chakra with regards to the throat chakra, there's more strength in bringing forward the truth and the lie. I mean, I've seen it's just a weak foundation. One lie up after the other, and it doesn't hold and it doesn't last. So anyway, um, I want to also, before it gets too late, I wanted to talk about, information that's provided in our media and, with regards to the pandemic, the vaccine mandates and the lockdowns. And, there's like so much information that's continually changing regarding the C-19 vaccine with the truth. About this form of therapy steadily coming out and being revealed. And what I mean about this information is like the side effects that we're seeing more and more that are coming out that they no longer can suppress. And last week we mentioned it, and I want to see has everyone seen the documentary Died Suddenly?
Yes, thank you so much for forwarding that information. It's
Yeah, yeah, that's something that you can only get in certain platforms. But it's it's out there and it's information that is being revealed. And think about it, these people, if they were too afraid to release this information out to the public, we would be in the dark with
yeah,
knowing what's going on.
yeah.
So that's just, my kind of input with regards to the truth and what's going on today. So,
Yeah, and
go ahead, Tarana.
I'll say it's to me it's obvious what's happening. So many people are dying prematurely.
Yeah,
Um,
dying suddenly.
and I mean, there are hard numbers with the insurance companies, but of course, nobody is releasing,
Mm,
either not releasing the cause of death or they're not even looking for the cause of death.
right, right.
Mhm.
But I mean, some of these, like in the particular documentary, they had the funeral directors. They had to speak up.
Yeah.
Some of they kept themselves in the dark for fear of being identified. They wanted to be anonymous, but they some of them they got to the point where they just had to speak up, just because it's just for humanity's sake.
hmm
But it's
hmm
going to get to the point where it doesn't even matter. I mean, it's just going to be so obvious
I
that
think in my opinion, it's becoming pretty obvious. It's
now.
pretty obvious.
Yeah, we still have some people that are in denial because I've like mentioned it and they don't want to address it. Well, then that also goes with the complacency, because they'll see the truth and so forth, but they won't say and speak up regarding that. And that's where I see that the throat chakra can be blocked and balanced and blocked, and to release it, to free it, so that you speak freely and not be afraid to speak the truth.
hmm hmm
In the Kitchen Veritas, I wanted to bring a thought forward, and I don't know if this is what's going on with people who just, are not willing to come forward and speak the truth or not. But I remember growing up, um, I was pretty stubborn, and I wasn't going to not do whatever I wanted to do. And so it created a situation where I was just going to do whatever I wanted to do, and I would just lie to my parents all the time. And like literally, like I was like, oh, I'm not allowed to do that. How am I going to create a scenario that allows me to do that scenario, but then I can actually do this instead? And like I know like teenagers do that anyway, but it was such a part of just, I'm gonna live however I want to live. I don't care who's gonna, I'm not hurting anyone. I just want to, do what I want to do. And so I just felt myself constantly lying, but then I was, always happy because I was doing whatever I wanted to do. And then as I got older, when I then could do everything I wanted to do, no one was telling me what to do and not
Mhm.
do, I found myself still being in that frequency of like lying for no reason. Just like
Mm,
silly things. Like it was very bizarre to me. Like, and someone would say, do you want to go here or something? And I would say, instead of just saying no, I don't want to, I would say, no, I need to, and then make something silly. I was like a fully
yeah.
functioning adult, and I
But
just,
that's
it
that's
would,
very common though. That's very common, Tiffany, with
yeah,
those kind
okay.
of
Well,
things.
that's good to know, but still, it wasn't appropriate. And
Yeah.
just rather than speaking, when I was able to then do what I wanted, speaking what I don't know. And so I wonder if some of what's going on, the darkness on top of darkness on top of darkness, also is connected to like what everyone's saying about releasing from the throat chakra, releasing the lies that are just in our cells and in our genetic makeup that then haven't fully shifted because the truth isn't being called for, So I don't know. I had that thought and just wanted to bring it forward because I really feel like if I didn't lie all the way through my adolescence, I would have had a very different life. And it wouldn't have
Mm.
been the one I wanted, So it was that weird kind of catch 22 of to do what I want, I had to lie when I was that age, I
Mhm.
felt like.
Well, that was supported. That's
And,
why. I
right,
mean,
right.
you society has it where it was supported. The way we've been trained and quote unquote programmed.
Well, and yeah,
To
I think you're right. And like with parents saying you can and can't do this instead of just being honest and explaining why you want to do something and just having those conversations and being
Right,
yeah.
right, right. Right. I just remembered, having discussion with my kids, and I would tell them hard truths, but it was, like, for instance, how to be warned of, if of, pedophiles, or if no one I would let them know, don't let anybody scare you into thinking they're going to hurt me, because I wasn't going to have that. And I was trying to instill that in there. I don't know how it worked, but all I know is that they used to say, "Here she goes again." you know, Here she goes again. And so that was just something that I did. I promoted in my home. But needless to say, there are many, many supportive tools that are available, that you can do on your own. And we talked about some of them. We can use candles, the meditations that we do. That and if you need stronger tools, there's the energetic tools such as soul translation and even property clearing, quantum light property clearing and soul clearing. That sometimes you need that extra boost in order to shift you into in to clear that that imbalance, let's say, that you're having. But strengthening the chakras, working with the chakras, is something that definitely works. Reduces the stress, supports your health, you need to support your liver so that you can have the clarity. Doing the whole responsibility, that meditations that we do. And in the beginning of the year, we're going to be adding more different types of tools and activities that support and strengthen us emotionally, mentally, and physically. So I just wanted to bring that information. We are powerful energetic beings. So we need to optimize our energies to support our health and immune system, especially nowadays, as well as our mental clarity and to make the proper decisions. So I'm going to just leave on that note. Does anybody have anything more to add, to comment on?
I enjoyed what Tiffany just said about adolescence because I think that um, in our culture or in the way things are is just screwed with adults pretending, and lying, I guess.
Yeah.
Uh, and so because I remember like adolescence too, like there was a lot of lying going on, a lot. And I remember me and my brother just, we would like collude in the lying just to not have the heat of the parents just sweating every second. So yeah, it's something.
Instead of just saying the truth, but they were programmed to lie,
Yeah.
and they got comfortable. You get comfortable with the lie,
Mhm. Mhm.
but then until the point where the lie doesn't hold anymore.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know. All right. Well, I'd like to remind everyone that we do have our Divine Nation workshop that's scheduled this Friday at 8 p.m., working with the Divine Nation, a Call for Truth, excuse me, Divination card deck, the companion for the Call for the Truth publication written by Laota Rasul. Again, it's free and a lot of fun, hosted by Diane Annis. So we, encourage you to join us. Remember, there are tools that are available. So we'll continue to share it. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, she's going to bring up more information with regards to our throat chakra. So it is calling for the truth. So, all right. Well, thank you everyone for joining and participating. It's always been a pleasure. I look forward to seeing you all next week. Oh, and I want to remind everyone too is that I am planning um, a new clubhouse on Sunday, and it's called Restructuring and Rebuilding a New System Through the Divine Feminine. Please look out for the flyer that I'll be sending. It's going to be on Sunday at 6 p.m. Just to kind of looking at actually gathering together like minded people, particularly the women who we can kind of collectively share our ideas and so forth and empower each other and support one another, just as Stacy talked about. So I encourage you to join. Should be fun, is a lot of fun as well. All right, everyone. So thank you for joining, and remember, knowledge is power, and taking action from this knowledge is true power. With honor, respect, and gratitude, and Lakesh and Veritas.
Muchas gracias, on respect and gratitude.
And the Question Veritas, fun, respect, and gratitude.